Wonder if there's going to be any Jezebel spirits in this episode.
Oh, lots of them. In fact, there's lots of them that were in this audience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do you think that Aaron or Hamburglar and Horseface, do you think that they're offended that Paul Van Noy went to the Matt Gaetz Lincoln Day dinner after they were encouraging everybody not to go and support a sex offender?
You know, if they were principled people, I would imagine they'd be jolted by that. They would have an internal conflict.
When you're a political operative, you don't have any conflicts. You're out to the highest bidder. Kind of like when you register to vote at one address that is known as a transitional drug house, and then your spouse is at another residence clear across the county.
Yeah.
You know, little things like that.
Yeah.
Normal people have these little incidents in their life, don't they?
Normal people?
Normal people. Oh. Don't you have lots of these types of things where you register to vote at transitional drug homes?
I hate when I do that. Mm-hmm. Is this thing going to fade out?
I don't know.
I'll take that as my cue. It didn't. Oh, it was the wrong crossfader. You'd think I did this for a living or something. In the world. Welcome to the Liberty Without Compromise live stream broadcast. This is a special two-part edition on the Show Your Proof Challenge. You got to stick with us on this one. We are the only live, local, liberty-minded broadcast right here in Kootenai County where we expose political power players, politicians, social influencers, power-playing pastors, and we talk about events from 2 years ago where people, local power players, they set themselves up for scrutiny. So we can talk about it a couple years later. That's what we're going to do tonight. We are your hosts, Dan and Donna Wilson. I'm here to screen questions and comments right there in the comment section, and you can participate there, submit your questions, and get engaged. If you're watching live, be sure to click the share button on whichever platform you're watching, whether that's Facebook, YouTube, or X. Dan and I will be engaging in the comment section tonight.
We are?
Yeah, have fun with that.
We are?
Yes, we are.
Cool.
If you're listening back on our podcast, be sure to catch us live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. And opinions expressed tonight are ours only, not that of anybody else. This is part one of our two-part Show Your Proof series. Back in 2024, sitting Sheriff Bob Norris and sitting County Commissioner Bruce Mattare hosted a public event framed as a challenge to Dan Wilson. That was to show up, prove your claims, and answer to them on their date, their time, their stage, alongside former prosecutor Bryant Bushling.
And don't forget, they said to a law enforcement standard.
Prove to a law enforcement standard. Dan did not agree to that premise. He didn't attend, but the event went forward anyway, complete with an oath, a courtroom-style setup, and a quote-unquote case presented to the room. So here's what we're going to do tonight. We are running this play-by-play using their own words from the transcript. Well, we're going to listen to it together. And we're slowing it down with 2 years of hindsight. We're going to walk through the presentation portion, the part where Norris and Mattare claim they refute Wilson's statements, and we're going to show you why, when you strip away the theatrics, they actually prove absolutely nothing. You're going to hear Norris frame this as protecting trust in the office. You're going to hear the legal language staging statutes, evidence, expert opinion, and you're going to see how the burden of proof gets flipped. Not prove misconduct, but prove you're allowed to question us. Prove you're even allowed to question us. We're going to pause often throughout. We're going to explain the context, and we're going to keep it grounded in what they actually said and did that night. And we're going to stop right before the Q&A portion, because that's going to be in part 2, where the room itself, that actually becomes the story in that episode. Mm-hmm. So let's get to it. Here's your host, Dan Wilson.
Episode 61 of the Liberty Without Compromise broadcast. Now, we have been spending a lot of time the past several months talking about churches and the bad actors that are running those churches, the sexual abuse cover-ups, the scandals. It's prevalent. We've also been talking about current events here in Kootenai County, but we, a couple weeks ago, began showing you guys Bruce Mattare in his own words, how he manipulates, how he deflects when he is speaking to the public. And this started when there was a county commissioner meeting with Hayden City Councilman Matt Roeder, who came to ask questions that he was not getting straight answers to. And when you watch how bad Bob Norris and Bruce Mattare attack the Councilman Matt Roeder, we decided that it was time. We've been waiting on it a long time to start breaking down and showing this change agent, Bruce Mattare, and the guy that he handles, Sheriff Robert Bob Norris, go back to 2 years ago during the campaign, where this really began. Some of you have come into this way late, way after I lost the sheriff's race. Some of you have been here from the beginning. You've heard us refer to this race quite a bit, but we're going to start bringing you some background now. And we want to prove to you exactly what we were up against and how we had to deal with it fluidly and in real time. I'm going to start by telling you why I first ran. And we're going to discuss the very beginning when political operative Bruce Mattare, a sitting county commissioner in Kootenai County and a special deputy former campaign manager of Bob Norris, came to try to not only embarrass but derail my kickoff rally back in December of 23. And it didn't stop from there. And we're going to talk about why that should concern you if you're in Kootenai County. We're going to show you now exactly what led up to the Show Your Proof 3-ring circus. It was a campaign stunt by Bob, but then the lines were blurred between, well, was it a campaign event or was it an official government-sponsored event? We're going to break that down here just shortly as to why those lines were blurred, and again, why you, as a citizen in Kootenai County, should be concerned. But this is now time, 2 years later, to break this down and to show you guys, because look, the very famous private conversation that I recorded, this is the only conversation I ever recorded, involving Tim Remington, actually is part of this event. It was prior to this event. It was specifically because of this event. This is what started the lies that John Padula, who is currently running for county commissioner once again, the convicted felon, the one who has bragged about sleeping with over 1,000 women, but he's saved now, so he's changed. It all goes back down to the altar church. We're not going to dive real deep into that tonight, but you're going to finally get a chance to see this event that we have been alluding to for the past 2 years. It is cringy. Let me be perfectly clear. It is extremely cringy, is it not?
Oh, it's so bad. And people who were outside of that circle, who we even said, I mean, please, for entertainment value, please go check this out. And people who were outside of this county that didn't have a frame of reference understood, I mean, this isn't even the right word, but just how pathetic, how absolutely embarrassing it was for elected officials to conduct themselves in this way and to use this kind of platform to go against a worthy opponent. Mm-hmm. I mean, and they refused a legitimate public debate. And I know you're going to talk more about that later, but it's pretty telling when you realize some people from outside the area are watching it and they can understand perfectly what's going on and how improper, how inappropriate, and what an abuse of power that was. But somehow you have this, I want to say, handful of people in the room that actually showed up to that event. I mean, when you think about the size of the county, really, they did not have a great turnout, probably like what they were anticipating. But very obvious when you're outside of the circle to see how messed up this was.
So a little background. I was born in the Spokane Valley. I was a fourth generation Wilson to live on the original Antone Plant homestead. That is a historical landmark in the Spokane Valley. I had grandparents that lived over in Post Falls. As kids, we went back and forth. I was a homeschool kid. Eventually, I purchased the house that I lived in for almost 20 years from my great aunt, who lived right next door to my grandparents' homestead. So my roots were deep there. I started a carpentry apprenticeship over in Kootenai County. In fact, built a house that sits in front of Post Falls Real Life before Real Life was ever even thought of. Did many things over the years, got married, had 5 kids, and started a couple construction companies. Eventually, about 10 years into my construction businesses, I applied and was accepted into the Spokane Police Academy and went through the academy, was, upon completion, a sworn Washington State Reserve police officer, special commission. When I did the job, I had all the same rules and liabilities and expectations as a full-time police officer did, but I did it for free. And I did it for 12 years, 4 years at the city of Spokane, and then my last 8 years in the city of Liberty Lake. I pushed my own patrol car. I put on my Kevlar vest and my uniform and my gun belt, my badge, and I went out and performed patrol functions. When Donna and I moved over here in 2020, not related to COVID, we knew how great Idaho is when it comes to the freedoms that people experience over on this side of the border. Limited government compared to Washington State. And we knew that once we got over here, we needed to get involved in politics. And so we began attending the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee various events. And we met some of these people on numerous occasions, and we went to every town hall that they hosted once we moved over here in 2020. Prior to that, I had been pretty involved in my youth with Republican politics. I was a young Republican board member for several years. I volunteered and did a lot of political work all the way from the time that I was in grade school, before I could drive, onward. We came over here, and one of the very first things I observed was fairly new Los Angeles deputy turned Kootenai County Sheriff Bob Norris at an event. It was a town hall for state legislators. And before the legislators could begin their town hall, Don Bradway, the mouthy MC, gave the microphone to Sheriff Bob Norris. This was not his event. And Bob Norris began a several-minute rant, whining, complaining to the legislators how they didn't fund law enforcement enough. He couldn't do his job, whining and complaining. It was the most pathetic thing that I have ever seen. And I turned to you and I said, first of all, who the F is this guy? Mm-hmm. And then if this is what stands between us and tyranny, we're in a hell of a lot of trouble. And I told you that if somebody did not step up in the next couple of years to challenge Bob Norris, I would. Mm-hmm. Before that, zero political aspirations. And I watched Bob over the next several years, whether it was the botched Patriot Front event that took place down in Coeur d'Alene or a host of other things. And I'm like, this county can do much better. And so when I decided to run in 2023 and filed with the state, filed with the county, I did so because I didn't think Bob was doing a good job. I didn't think he had vision, clear vision. Like, what are we going to do to get this county ready for any kind of man-made or natural event? We need a citizen posse of vetted individuals from all walks of life and beliefs and backgrounds so that we could make certain that in any kind of an event, we have all the proper professionals ready to help us so that we can secure our county for all, conservative, liberal, whatever, all citizens of Kootenai County. I also thought we should have a robust deputy reserve program, and on it went. And so this was what I launched my campaign with, to challenge the sitting Republican sheriff in a primary. And I said, I'm going to run against him. I know that's not popular, but frankly, the dude never exudes anything about the Constitution. I've never heard him comment anything about the founders or say anything of any substance. And I figured, in a county like Kootenai, where everybody says, Patriot, we're not shutting down during COVID, we're not wearing masks, don't take our guns away, that my message would ring heavily true to those in this county who believe the way I do, in liberty without compromise. And so that's exactly what I did when we started our website and our social media. We put our platform together. We put it out for the world to see. And I had my very first kickoff rally, December, I think it was 3rd or 4th.
6th, I think.
6th, okay, 2023. And it was a chance for people from the community to come in and listen to my speech that we wrote for what my vision was and kind of my background, and then a Q&A time. And this is where everything began. And so, Donna, you can interject in between. Well, I'm setting this up because there needs to be a little bit of background, folks. But it was at the very first event that Slimeball from Washington, D.C., defamed businessman, think of Blue Hippo, go look that up, when he had to turn state evidence against his partner for shady lending practices, predatory lending practices. Bruce Mattare, former campaign manager of Sheriff Bob Norris during the 2020 campaign and election, became a county commissioner in the election of 2022, taking office in 23. And he decided that he was going to come straight to my rally and he was going to cause interference. So
I'll just remind everybody to share this feed to your page or profile if you're just now joining us. And then also stay involved in that comment section. Dan and I are going to be joining you right there, getting cozy in the comment section. This is a couple minute clip. I want you to watch Dan's reaction as we watch this together.
The city of Spokane implemented a reserve officer program. You guys familiar with what a reserve officer is? A reserve officer is a police officer that has met all the same standards as a full-time sworn officer, but they do it part-time and they give it back to their community. In some places they are paid, but they have all the same authority and arrest powers that a full-time 24/7, 365 officer does. Do you realize how many former law enforcement officers live in this county? We should be having a reserve program like Spokane that it saved the city of Spokane almost $800,000 last year in volunteer service to the community. Is that important to you guys to know that your community was granted by people that put their time in, volunteers, almost $1 million? Sir.
I have a question. What level of post-training do they have in Spokane? Is it 1, 2, and 3, or is it only 1? Where you've gone through the full post academy?
Mm-hmm. You go through the regular academy, and then with your department, you do another post.
Yeah, because you're aware that Idaho, the state legislature, got rid of 2 and 3, and so now, in order to be post-certified, you have to go through a year of training as a volunteer. And that's one of the challenges with getting volunteers in Idaho, because they won't let you go through 2 and 3. They got rid of that. Where a level 3, you're correct about that, and we've looked at that. A level 3 or a level 2 is someone who you could have drive an inmate from the scene to the jail.
From the jail.
Right? And have the full-time deputy, complete their report and stay out in the field. But it's, believe it or not, it's Boise that did that. It has nothing to do with a local issue.
Do you remember when you and I had a conversation when you were running for county commissioners and you told me, quote, reserve officers were a waste of time and resource?
I don't ever remember saying that.
Yes, sir, you did.
Well, I don't ever remember saying that. So.
Next
and I don't know why I would.
So you can see that I'm a much more, I would say, milder person at that time. I wasn't going to be confrontational because that just wasn't in, I guess, my makeup at that time.
Just in like 20 seconds recap what that was, because we were ambient room noise. It was a camera that was not ours, and these guys weren't mics, so you're hearing a bit of an echo in the room. But just to reset, you're making the presentation.
I'm making the presentation that we just read a report out of Spokane PD, which is where I used to work as a reserve officer. And in their report for fiscal year ending that year, that the reserve officer program, that's reserves that don't get paid a dime, saved the city over $800,000 in service. So the reserve officers for Spokane provide a big benefit to the taxpayers. And so I was making that argument. Bruce Mattare, who is at this time a county commissioner, raises his hand and he starts trying to confuse the situation. He starts talking about levels A, B, and C, but he wasn't being truthful for what he said. What he was doing is he was attempting to complicate it. He was bringing something into the argument that had nothing to do with what I was talking about, expecting that people were just going to listen to him and automatically discredit me. And I was solid in my understanding of the post requirements, which says that any law enforcement officer that has recently separated from their agencies within 3 years, once they apply for the agency they want to work with, Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, Post Falls PD, Coeur d'Alene PD, that if they're in good standing and they pass the background, Post will give them an Idaho Post certification. That means there is no additional academy. What Bruce was attempting to confuse is the practice of bringing in brand new recruits that had no previous law enforcement experience.
Right.
So he didn't even understand the argument of what it was that he was trying to say. But that was just one of the incidents that he did that night when he decided to open up his mouth, and he was wrong and he was a liar.
Yep.
So that was my very first taste of what was going to start transpiring with the Bob and Bruce show.
Yeah. When I reviewed that kickoff event and then also an early on event from the official Republican Party here in Kootenai County, where you were getting questions about Bob Norris for those who thought he was doing a great job, like, why are you jumping into this? You really can see it's proof right there on video that you're initially the way you were presenting and the campaign was based on your ideas. It was never an anti-Norris campaign. It was a pro Dan Wilson, and I'm going to educate you as to why. I am going to teach you why I am perfectly positioned to do this job. Right. Here's my platform. Here's my ideas. And it's right there. There's video proof of it. Yeah. And like you said, that took a sharp turn. I
don't think Mattare was expecting me to respond the way that I did, because I met him. You and I met him. It was the very first time I told you, within 30 seconds, when he came to speak, when he was on his own campaign trail up at Spirit Lake at the community center. And he was talking about having to raise taxes for law enforcement. And I went up,
of course,
never identified who I was or my background. That at that time, I was still a current reserve police officer in Washington State. He merely said, when I questioned him, he says, no, reserves are a waste of time and money. Mm-hmm. That was in the essence. So let's keep going on. Mm-hmm. So of course things are going online, and we're getting the typical pushback from Southern California pro law enforcement folks that are now up here, and they want to promote their friends, because there is a contingent of Southern California law enforcement that are elitist, and we won't go into that tonight. That's kind of not really germane to the conversation. However, we had a speaking engagement, and I say we because you went with me everywhere. We were invited by the KCRCC, Darling, Beverly Gwinnett, and these are kind of ancillary auxiliaries to the KCRCC, the pachyderms. So I was going to speak at the pachyderms, and when I got there, I realized that they had stacked the room. Bob Norris was there, Bruce Mattare, their wives, a whole host of unfriendlies. Didn't come there to actually listen to my ideas. They came in to try to do ambush questions and gotcha questions. Terry Seymour, Nina Beasley, who had already made their entrance into my campaign in that very first video that we just played with my kickoff. We played that before. It was right here that I realized that I can no longer do anything but play offense, because the knives are coming out. We're going to play some of these incidents for you guys for reference. And why this matters is because I started going on the offense and actually having to expose Bob Norris and his own personal examples of his failings and some of the shady things that he was involved in doing, even though it was called mudslinging. I was doing this at the same time of promoting my program. And so we started beginning to make videos to bring to light some of what eventually became hot topics for Bob Norris and set us up for the Show Your Proof. He's going to reference these videos and show some of them in his video, but because of the audio quality, we want you guys to hear the original video in its entirety. That way you have reference when they play it in the Show Your Proof event that's coming up very shortly. So one of the very first things that I did is I was concerned at the pachyderms. I was ambushed by Bruce Mattare again, and he came with a law enforcement incident report where deputies had showed up to my house. They had received a call that somebody with a firearm was wearing it, and I was up on my own private property on acreage. Neighbor that was suing me for land ended up calling law enforcement because they saw me with a holstered firearm on my side. The deputies showed up. They asked questions. I answered them directly. I'm on my own property, exactly with the questions that were asked of me, nothing more. The neighbor that actually called it in, he was in Montana, so his wife that was home told her husband, who was in Montana, that they saw me wearing a gun to call the deputies me because I was supposedly intimidating them by wearing a gun, even though they shot firearms all the time up on their place, and I never unholstered. I was never intimidating anybody. But Bruce brought this incident report specifically to the campaign event, the pachyderm speaking engagement, and he attempted again to ambush me, claiming that I was untruthful to law enforcement. That didn't go well. So I, in turn, made a video where I speculated, hey, Bruce claims that he's a special deputy. In fact, it's not just what he claims. They also talked about it in the November 19th, 2023 Coeur d'Alene Press article that we're going to reference here in a second. But take a look at this video because I'm asking some important questions. The only thing that I wish I wouldn't have done is I said police powers when I meant, I mean, a better word would have been privileged or protected information, not police powers, but police power still does fall within the category. Mm-hmm. So if we get that video, let's go ahead and play that one.
I've already spoken about Bob Norris giving this special deputy status to Bruce Mattare, who has never gone through any kind of a police academy, yet he now has police powers. He was, of course, Bob's former campaign manager and now newest county commissioner. And yet there's supposed to be a separation of powers, and I'm not seeing that between the county commissioner's office and the sheriff's office. And that should concern all of us. Bruce now has access to information, police power type of information that you and I don't have access to, and he can use that information against his political opponents. I've had several speaking engagements recently where Bruce has shown up, and he's used some information that I'm kind of curious as to where he obtained that from. You see, if they can do this to me, they can do it to any of their political opponents. And Bob Norris is facilitating this. It's below the belt. It should be considered to be improper, bad policy. And I think that Bob should immediately pull this special deputization, and the citizens of Kootenai County should demand it. We do not want the joining of powers between any of the three branches here locally, and we sure as heck don't want a current elected official having access to stuff that only police have access to. What do you guys think about that? Are you okay with Bruce having the special deputization?
So what we're speaking about is...
They didn't like that.
Yeah.
They didn't like that.
Look, when you think of the three branches of government, you often hear at the federal level separation of power between the executive, which is the president, the judicial, which of course is the courts, and the legislative, which is Congress. Well, here locally, we have the same governance. The executive is Bob Norris as the sheriff. The legislative would be the county commissioners, are the ones that approve budgets and where dollars go, as well as they pass ordinances. And then lastly, you have the courts. So what you have here is you have Bob Norris, who is the sheriff, the executive, and he gave a special deputization. He brags about this in the Coeur d'Alene Press, and Bruce is privy to information. He even admits to it that he gives to him. I didn't know where they got the information on the police report. It came in pretty short order. Usually it takes a long time to be able to go through the process for this incident report again. But Bruce then became a county commissioner, and he never gave up this special deputization. I talked to the other two county commissioners at that time. There's three. Bill Brooks was one, and Leslie Duncan. Neither one of them had a special deputization. So you basically have somebody from the executive that also has somebody in the legislative. Bruce Mattare votes on the budgets that the sheriff asks. And you absolutely should not have that relationship. And you should not have a political operative like Bruce Mattare that is around sensitive information, even if he's just lurking in the background in the sheriff's office behind closed doors. He's privy to listening to things that he should not be listening to. And it blows my mind that even to this day, nobody still has demanded that this stop. Apparently, the people out in Kootenai County just don't care. You don't care that there's supposed to be checks and balances. Brent Bushling is erroneous when he talks about this coming up. But let's go ahead and play yet another video that I was running at this time, and it concerns integrity issues with Robert Norris.
It's okay. I mean, he's been highly emotional lately, actually for the past 2 years. Take a look and tell me what you think.
I feel like we are on a ship and I'm plugging these holes, but we just keep sinking.
So that's Sheriff Bob Norris there getting emotional.
Do not support
I belong to North Idaho Patriot. I belong to Reagan Republicans, the Micah Flats Range, and
You love your mom.
competitive gymnastics, Dad. And a competitive dance, Dad.
Now, we know that Bob makes over $180K a year in disability income from the state of California, and that is a lot of money. But I'm getting a little concerned about his emotional outbursts at the most trivial things for no reason. And I'm kind of wondering what kind of disability does he actually have, and he should be leveling with the people. I'm concerned for his health, and more importantly, for the people of Kootenai County.
So what I was bringing up is I began getting phone calls from Los Angeles County deputies, some that were retired that had worked with Bob Norris back in the 90s and 2000s, and then some that were still currently working there. And what they told me is that Bob retired around 2013, and he had a heart issue that actually started back in the early 2000s, around 2003, and that he had a couple stints put in. Bob Norris in 2020 was asked a question about his disability. This is all public information, and we're going to show this in a little while, but he is getting over, back at the time of this video, over $180,000 a year in disability retirement, including about $30,000 in medical and retirement benefits. But overall, the question is, if you had a serious disability, something happened where you were able to retire with this disability status. I mean, for example, if you were to go to LACERA, Los Angeles County Employment Reserve Association, Retirement Association, and look up Captain Mike Bauer, he spent 30 years there. He is not on a disability retirement. When you have a disability retirement, that means that your attorneys sued to get you that status. And as a result, like in the rest of our worlds, if somebody's injured on the job and they are disabled, there are work restrictions going forward, things that they can no longer do that related to the job they had where they were injured. And I wanted to know, Bob Norris, what were your real injuries? You've never disclosed this. In 2020 to the Coeur d'Alene Press, he claimed that, well, it's not a type of injury that, people normally think about injuries, where you have the placard you put on your rear view mirror when you go to park and need wheelchair access. His isn't that kind. I was concerned because you see these emotional outbursts, crying. The first one, he's speaking to the press. It's his first year in. And he's like, I can't plug the holes. And he's crying. And KXLY goes, he's emotional.
That's Sheriff Bob Norris getting emotional.
Then the next one was from 2023, late summer 23. And he's crying because somebody is accusing him of being a racist. And then lastly,
and we were at that event.
Yeah, it was
leaning up against the wall. That event was pretty packed.
It was up in Hayden, emergency management.
He had some opposition there, so we're leaning up against the wall. You're to my right, and I'm looking at Norris to my left, and then look at you. Is he?
Yeah, it's a crybaby. Yeah,
and then the other incidents.
Yeah, the last one was he was speaking at the Pachyderms, the same group that I had spoken to the week previous, or maybe a couple weeks previous, but he's around all of his friends. They are literally packed full of his friends, and he's introducing himself to his friends again, and he's talking about being a competitive dance dad and a member of the Micah Grange, and he goes,
Oh, they should get a good.
Right?
They're going to make a meme out of that.
Good.
You should probably do that again in a close up. There you go.
So he does that, and he breaks down, and he's having a hard time composing himself. And then the drag queen, Terry Seymour, you can hear go, "We love you, Bob," in her best drag voice possible.
Dan and I punk each other with that every once in a while out of nowhere. We love you, Bob.
Okay, so again, it's a question. He has never produced, the bottom line is he never produced any of his work restrictions. And if he is doing things that he could no longer do at Los Angeles while he's on this almost, $100 and at that time, $80,000 a year retirement, it is fraudulent because he makes another $140,000 also as sheriff. But you notice that he wears his jumpsuit and his gun belt and his Kevlar vest, and he is in a patrol uniform. In fact, he's bragged about stopping vehicles. We know that he stopped vehicles. We have those proofs. He threatened somebody to pepper spray them. So again, putting this out there. Well, then a couple other quick things, and we're going to actually start this video. It's taken a long time to set this up. Tam's Hamburgers. Now, Idaho Sunshine Law state, we talked about this a couple weeks ago with Bruce Mattare. One entity can only give $1,000 maximum in the primary and or the general if the ownership is owned, that entity is owned by the same partners, and I always mess this up trying to explain. In this case, there were 4 Tam's hamburger stands owned by Chris Volvos. He had them under 4 different corporations by the city he was in, but it's the same ownership, same management. It was a violation. We went on to later prove that through the LA Times article when Villanueva, sheriff of LA, eventually was caught because he was receiving these straw man campaign donations illegally from Tam's Hamburger. We're going to talk about Chris Volvos and his ties into Tam's Hamburgers. Again, we're flying by this. We're going to go into this in greater detail in part 2. But we also talked about Bob spending $3,000 in 2020 to Reputation Defender, which is an online professional subscription where you pay them and they start scrubbing anything that's unfavorable about you online. Now, they can't get rid of it all, but they do a pretty darn good job. Bob spent $3,000 of campaign donations to do that. And that was what we were really kind of starting to make the question, saying this guy from Los Angeles doesn't espouse North Idaho values. He's seedy in his donations. We're going to prove more why that was actually true. He's emotional. He can't control his emotions. And as the sheriff, the top law enforcement officer of the county, it's pretty important that you control your emotions. Is it because he has a heart issue and he can't control his emotions, which then puts the county at great risk, right? Because if we can't believe that the sheriff, who stands between an unaccountable, out of control federal and or state government, we're in a lot of trouble. That's why you have the sheriff is this boundaries, checks and balances, as well as the fraudulent nature. If he is doing things like patrol that he supposedly is disabled from California, as well as the special deputization and the palling around with Bruce Mattare.
And again, this started out as a campaign where you really could say, as much as you can be political opposition and mind your own business, that is exactly what you set out to do. Then they emerged, meaning Bob Norris directly attacking you and then sending his operatives, like mainly Bruce Mattare, coming out and attacking you at your very first kickoff event, which is when you said, succinctly stated, you're a quick study. So that's all it takes for you to go, okay, I need to be on the offense. And then that's when you said, who is this guy, Bob Norris, really?
Yeah, yep.
Now it's time to take time I don't have, but I'm committed to this. And
Plus people were pouring
was dedicated
into us.
to running.
People from down in California
who had
that
intel.
Had,
so as much support as Norris seemed to have here, we had people, and you had people contacting you that were feeding intel to say, look, he was down here. This did not go well. He is not the dude that he claims to be. And so you merely start asking questions. And then that's when they were like, we're not having any of this.
And we haven't even talked about the COVID video where he was lecturing people
so
about
pathetic.
adhering to COVID lockdowns. He actually did that. We're going to show that in part 2.
Yep.
And then lastly, my biggest issue with him was no plans for the border. And he still, up until just a couple months ago, this is now 2026, joined up with ICE 287G. Before that, he was not taking any kind of a proactive stance on human trafficking, nor with border issues. And so Donna and I remember this is in the last year of the Biden administration where the borders had been opened up for 4 solid years. I contacted my friend, then Sheriff Mark Lamb, and his son, Cade, took me and Donna down for about 14 hours to the unsecure Arizona-Mexico border. And I held a summit about what we saw, what we videoed, what we experienced there, the NGO camps, the military-age males who were pouring over the border without any kind of border patrol or military. And we put a video together, and we use this promo video, and it's going to become important because I want everyone to see the video in its raw form. Bob didn't want to really show it too much in the event that he's getting ready to put on, but it was one of the anchor points of my entire campaign of having secure borders. And I'm not going to get into the logistics right now about, well, how does a guy from Idaho enforce federal law? That wasn't the point, but we're going to go ahead and watch this video, and then we're going to dive into the show your proof and how that came to be.
West.
Of wall that is a good 12 feet wide, that is completely open to the Mike side or Mexican border.
I'd be careful right now. There's cartel right in that fucking wash down there.
Yeah.
And they've got mounted 50s and all that shit, so just be careful.
Yeah.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thanks, brother.
Giving you guys a heads up. That's
Thanks.
what we saw coming down.
Thanks, brother. I'm walking at this humanitarian camp. There was probably at least 30 people that showed up in the past 30 minutes that we've been here. Come straight down the wall.
That was a great video, by the way. So we played that for our promo for about a week prior to the town hall event that I had on the border. Coincided the same night that Bob had his kickoff rally for his reelection campaign. And, you know, we noted that at no time had Bob ever gone down to the border.
Correct.
It absolutely hadn't even crossed his mind. He did not care about the border. He would occasionally bring Border Patrol up here and he'd let them talk, but he had no plan for us here. So this 40 minutes that we have been talking with all this background was critical for you to understand what precipitated this show your proof. Now, Bob had close to $100,000 in his campaign coffers. He was the incumbent. No time did he ever hire somebody to shoot video to rebut any of the things that I was saying. If they were so easily dispelled,
Right.
he had all this money. We operated this on a very limited budget, but instead of coming out and making any official statements, he just never did.
Yeah, there are very modern methods to almost immediately respond to something if it is not fact. Then just bring it. Bring your knowledge, bring whatever paperwork you have, and present that to the public. It's that easy to do.
So in the end of February, we've just talked about the past 90 days of the start of the campaign. I'm driving between here and Moscow, and you send me this email that we received. That's our slide number 1 for the night. And I want you guys to notice this, if you can make that fully and take up the whole screen with that so I can read it. Thank you. It is from Robert Norris, Bob at sheriffnorris.com. So that's his campaign. It's on the 28th of February. He says, subject line, candidate Wilson, I am publicly challenging you to a show your proof challenge regarding claims you have made, all in caps, against me and or Commissioner Mattare in your campaign for sheriff. Bring your proof. Now, the rest of this is all in caps. So he's angry, I guess. If Dan Wilson wants to be our sheriff, and if he wants to accuse people of criminal wrongdoing, then he should be able to provide proof of his claims to a law enforcement standard. The last thing this county needs is a top law enforcement officer in the county accusing people of criminal acts without articulable facts. This community deserves the best. If Dan Wilson can prove his claims, Sheriff Norris will donate $1,000 to a local children's charity. Show your proof. When? March 14, 2024. Where? The Altar Church. Signed, Sheriff Bob Norris.
Okay.
So one looks at that. Let's go up to our next slide.
Oh, wait, I do have to say, yes, we know that cops type in all caps. You're going to get that criticism.
He didn't start out, though.
He started out in normal case, and then. But I just want to say that because people are going to say, "Hey, dummy, don't you know that's what law enforcement officers do?" Here you go. I know, and I know you know, but I just know how the people's are.
So here's where we're going to start picking this apart, because I want you guys to look at the way that it's not a clear line. Is this the sheriff that is addressing me, or is this the candidate addressing me? Notice that he said in that original letter he just sent, he mentioned County Commissioner Bruce Mattare, and he signed it Sheriff Robert Bob Norris. Now look at this. This was their advertisement that they paid Meta, Facebook, to run these ads before they ever talked to us. Again, we were just told you're going to be here. There was no, hey, we want to challenge you and let's come up with the rules of the game and anything about the event. It's just, you're going to be here, and it's an inquisition. You're gonna show up and prove to a law enforcement standard. Career lawman Sheriff Bob Norris challenges former part-time reserve officer to a show your proof challenge. So he's right there diminishing. He's superior because he's a career lawman, career corrupt cop, incompetent cop. Challenges a former, because yes, at that time I was no longer a reserve officer. I'd retired the year before. Part-time reserve officer. That's the same thing. You know that, right? Part-time and reserve. Part-time reserve.
That was redundant.
Show your proof challenge. Sheriff candidate Dan Wilson has made serious criminal and other allegations against, listen to the names, not candidate Bob Norris, but Sheriff Bob Norris and or Commissioner Bruce Mattare. If Wilson can substantiate these criminal allegations against Robert Bob Norris or Bruce Mattare with articulable facts to a law enforcement standard, Sheriff Norris will donate $1,000 to a local charity. All proceeds will benefit children who have been abused at home. That was a dig on me. Because, of course, there was the false claims that I had been abusing a former stepdaughter.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what set this event up. And I told them pound sand. I didn't even respond, but my supporters knew that there's no way in hell I was going to go to this event. It was going to be completely staged. There was not going to be anything there that was going to be level or that was going to be fair in any degree. It was going to be a lynching. And we'd already heard rumors through John Padula and Tim Remington, because if you listen to that hour-long rant of Tim Remington, when I was questioning him as to why he was allowing this event to be held at the church, Remington, as he talked about what a pain and problematic that not only Terry Seymour was, but also Bob and Bruce, that they're always conniving together, he also let loose that they were going to have a prosecuting attorney there, a prosecutor. So we put out a statement saying that we weren't going to be there on our social media. And this event took place regardless. And it was open to the public because they've been advertising it open to the public.
Yeah.
One of our friends, the BC preacher, Quincy Franklin, who I met when I had my very first opening rally back in December,
The kickoff.
had no idea who he was. We became friends after that point. He went and attempt to video this. Let's see what Bob Norris's wife, Susan Norris, the sheriff's wife, and County Commissioner Bruce Mattare's wife, Carla, and I think somebody said that her father was a Bolivian general. But watch what they do to Quincy when Quincy attempts to come and set up in the Show Your Proof, and see how they handle and treat the general public.
Yeah, and just to clarify, Quincy was setting up in order to live
thank
stream
you.
that event. Here you go.
Thank you.
So why do I have to leave? So now don't say nothing else.
Yes, don't say anything else because we've already asked you to leave.
We're at a church.
Respectfully asking you to leave. Okay? And I'm going to tell you why.
Why?
Because you lied in more than one occasion with your videos. First lie, and I have the screenshots, is when you said that at the Lincoln Day dinner, when you reported it and you were asking for money, and you said that there were 2,500 people where there weren't 2,500 people. That's a lie. We don't want to have any type of misleading information coming out of this event. Okay? Second lie.
Well, if it's a live stream, there won't be no misinformation, would there?
Second lie.
Okay.
We have people live streaming. We don't need to live stream.
Okay.
Second lie. Okay.
Yeah.
You said that.
So how many people were at the Lincoln Day thing? I said 2,500.
I'm not gonna have this argument.
That's not an argument. That's a question.
I gave you the information as to why you have been giving misleading information. I gave you one example. You interrupted me when I was about to give you the second example. I'm gonna ask you that you please leave.
So if I talk to the altar church,
Please.
I'll talk to the altar church.
Please go talk to the altar.
I will, because this is a church, and from my understanding, it's at 501.
Okay, please.
So it's open to everybody, from my understanding.
There's no service right now. I'm sure you can come back on Sunday.
No
and you
service
can
right now.
listen to
So it's a private. So if it's a private event, why was it broadcasted publicly?
Okay, it will be. And I said it will be. We have 2 camera people. Okay, and I explained to you why you are not.
So what's my second lie?
Yeah. Okay. Listen, why don't
No, I'm asking what.
I'm already asked.
Okay, let's talk to the church. We can talk to the church.
Okay, now Quincy is a famous live streamer who began in Portland during BLM Antifa in 2020 and before that. But he came to live stream, as you were so right in correcting me, and they didn't like him because he was obviously supporting me. And so notice that they're attempting to remove his First Amendment right. They opened it to the public. And again, doesn't this look like the Teresa Bourne-Poll Town Hall where they claim it's a public event? When you get there, then they say, well, wait just a second, it's a private event.
Yeah, she said, so it was hard to hear because you had a lot of room noise in there. But
she can't speak good English.
In essence, you have Carla Mattare, who's Bruce Mattare's wife, comes right up to Quincy because he was setting up to live stream. And she said, you can't be here. You need to get your things, get out of here. And he said, well, why? And she said, because you're a liar. And then she said, he said, give me an example of when I lied. And she proceeds to give him 2 examples, one of which was he was live streaming the previous Lincoln Day dinner.
And he miscounted.
And he erroneously said there were 2,500 in attendance, which would have been a compliment to them, by the way.
Right.
But he gave because he was taking a shot at what the attendance was, and so he's a liar.
Yeah. What was the second one?
Now I don't. It was so. It took so
Well,
long to get there. I actually. It was hard to hear.
So let's get back down. Let's go ahead and play this video. We've now spent almost an hour giving the background. It's important because we're going to break this down. Let's go and see how far we can get in the next hour before we have to put it on pause.
Good evening. My name is Robert Norris, and I am your current sheriff here in Kootenai County.
Okay, let's go ahead and put this on pause real quick here. I can't pause it on mine.
I am an elected.
Okay. It, for whatever reason, doesn't give me the controls over on this side. Notice those name placards. They zoomed in on them just for those that maybe weren't paying real close attention. You have the name placard saying Sheriff Robert Norris, so his official title. Then you have County Commissioner Bruce Mattare, and then candidate Dan Wilson. So once again, this blurred line, is this an official government sponsored event, or is this, a campaign event? So I just want to bring this out. They also showed Deputy Prosecutor Bryant Bushling's name. So pay attention to what he says next.
Official, and I am your chief law enforcement officer in the county. Amen. Also with us here tonight is Bruce Mattare, who is also an elected official and one of our commissioners. And Bryant Bushling. Bryant Bushling is a former prosecutor. He only has almost 40 years of practicing law. It's a long time.
Doesn't seem like it.
And Mr. Bushling has offered his services here tonight. I did invite Dan Wilson, who is as of today, is an independent candidate for Kootenai County Sheriff. And I did not receive any correspondence from him. And I'm going to tell you why this is so important that I had to have this forum, is because when there is accusations, especially of criminal wrongdoing against elected officials, and in this case, one of them happens to be your sheriff, it potentially can erode at the trust and confidence that you all have in me. And I will not allow that to happen.
Okay, so listen to what he just said. Anytime somebody accuses your sheriff or the commissioner of criminal wrongdoing of elected officials, he won't allow that. Now, I already played those videos for you. At no point did I come out and say you have committed a crime. I'm questioning whether or not the legitimacy of Bruce Mattare being a special deputy, and he has access to privileged information. He has never dispelled that to this day. Bob Norris has never dispelled his disability. He never provided any kind of proof. We're going to continue down this road. We're going to show you exactly how much of a liar Bob is, because we have more information on that Lacera issue. But he's not going to allow it. So he's trying to appeal to the people, right? He's saying, how dare you in a campaign accuse me of these things, and I'm going to now act on behalf of me as sheriff, even though I'm running against this guy as a candidate, and I'm going to put my name placards and I'm the sheriff. So this candidate and you out there understand that I'm the sheriff, and we're not going to allow any, guy like you out there that is a carpenter or a plumber or a baker. run for any office, because the minute you start saying anything that may seem inflammatory or make the other candidate uncomfortable, you're eroding the trust in the elected officials, and I won't allow it.
Well, it also blurs the line between the fact that the office of the sheriff is an elected position. So you have to operate in that political realm as well, which means you don't come in and then use the power of that office, which you were elected to. Again, you were not appointed to, you didn't rank up to it, you were elected to it. So you then don't do such a disgusting thing to take the power of that office and use it against a political opponent who is fairly running against you. And it is necessary for you to run for re-election to continue to be elected into that office.
All right, let's go ahead.
Okay, I think you can hit. I think you can. I think
I can
you
do
got
it.
it. I
No,
think you got it.
It pulls it down to the screen for whatever reason.
Okay, no, it's still there. You just need to hit play. Can you do it?
No, it was. Yeah, here we go.
You can say anything you want. You know what? I don't care. You can say whatever you want. But when you start throwing criminal accusations at the chief law enforcement officer in the county,
criminal,
and
huh?
I spend a lot of time, and our organization spends a lot of time earning your trust. And I'm not going to allow that to happen. I'm not going to allow that.
Like, what does that even mean? He's not going to allow it. Okay.
And yes, and also, of course, the commissioner. As an elected official, he and she and they have been entrusted by you to lead this county and to represent this county from you, the people. So it's very, very critically important that when these accusations fly, and I ignored them for a long time, but when they became criminal, then I said it's time. Then I said it's time. So, is Dan Wilson in the building? Anybody see Dan Wilson? Because I would like for Dan Wilson, if he is here, to be able to respond to these accusations that we are going to show you. But I don't see Mr. Wilson here tonight. Mr. Bushling, would you mind coming up and providing a standard oath that is used in many courts in these great United States of ours?
I will. Is this mic on? Gentlemen, this is related to the comments that you will make here tonight, the statements that you will make, the items that you will present, and any other items that you present other than documents. So basically everything that you say here are presented tonight. So if you would both raise your right hands. Do each of you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Do each of you swear that all items presented here tonight are factual documents without editing or altering of any kind?
Yes, I do.
Do each of you swear that all items presented here tonight were obtained through lawful means and or without duress, intimidation, or retaliation?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
All right, then, yeah, you know what, yeah, let's sit up here.
Okay, you guys understand that this is not a actual court, right?
All right, where
Those
is
oaths
our
are
computer,
those oaths are nothing more than
all right, well, then we're going to go
hyperbole.
ahead and, oh, you know what? Can you describe, Mr. Bushling, a little bit about your experience and tell the crowd a little bit about yourself?
It's tough to condense 40 years in 10 seconds, but I'll try to do it. How's that? Good. Okay. Like I said, it's tough to condense 40 years into 10 seconds. I'll try to do it. I'm a lawyer, don't hold me to 10 seconds. I practiced law for...
He's from Los Angeles, folks. He came up to Kootenai County from Los Angeles.
I believe that the reason I'm here tonight is a lot of lawyers don't have a lot of experience with evidence. They are, for example, draft wills, they're corporate lawyers. They never go to court. I've actually spoken to some attorneys who practiced for decades and have been to court maybe once.
Good.
So what I did as a lawyer was almost every day was looking at police reports, speaking to witnesses, and applying the rules of evidence to what they had to say to determine whether or not I could, number one, bring charges, and whether or not it was something that could be proven in court. So to do that, I had to think in terms of burdens of proof and types of evidence. There are different types of evidence. There's a witness to an event, for example, could be a type of evidence, but you could also have a videotape of the event. Those two types of evidence have different weights. One is a little bit more trustworthy than another. So those are the kinds of things I did every day, and so those skills will be brought here tonight to review what we're doing. In terms of burdens of proof, one of the things that we learned in law school, and that we just learned from fundamental fairness in debate class, and that is if you're going to bring an accusation against someone, especially of a serious nature, of the type that we've seen here, you should have some proof. In preparation for tonight, and I have nothing against Mr. Wilson, I don't know him, I've never met him, but I tried to find out what his proof was for the allegations, and I was unable to find any. So I do go in with a little bit of a bias here tonight, but I'm going to try to be as fair as I can.
He tried to find out what your proof was.
He never contacted me, even though we had our contact information all over the website.
Correct.
You and have we socialized together? I don't know if you're married or not, but have you and your spouse and me and my spouse ever socialized privately?
As a disclaimer here, I have never socialized with the sheriff. I spoke with him until tonight, probably over the last 3 years, maybe 15 minutes. I'm not even sure most of the time he knew who I was, other than somebody on the street saying, "You're running for sheriff."
They're doing this really cool thing where they're trying to prove there's not a conflict of interest between the two of them.
Yeah.
Commission, I think about 3 years ago, the alternate forms of government commission. Some of you may have attended some of those hearings. We are not friends. I would say we are friendly.
Okay.
We see each other, we talk,
how
but
serious.
we've never done anything socially together.
And you were not asked to
Look how serious that they are right now, trying to make this like it's some epic court battle, like we've gone through discovery and first appearances. We're on trial. We're on trial.
Let's go with allegation number 1.
Here we go.
All right, so Idaho State Statute 18-2202. Any person who knowingly and without authorization uses, accesses, or attempts to access any computer system, computer network described in section 18-2201, which basically is a list of any and all computer systems that a government entity or private entity would have. Or in Idaho code, or any computer software program, documentation, data contained in such computer systems, or computer network commits a computer crime. So this is an Idaho state statute, and this is generally a misdemeanor. Next slide.
What's a misdemeanor?
Whoever embezzles, steals, purloins, or knowingly converts to his use or the use of another without authority, sells, conveys, or disposes of any record, voucher, money, or thing of value in the United States or any department or agency thereof, or any property made or being made under the contract. And that's where our systems touch, under the contract. So
he's doing a horrible job setting this up.
This would be because we have our systems.
Yeah, it really doesn't make sense what he's working toward at all.
Crime Information Center. And
Okay, real quick. So basically what he's trying to do, just for the people who have no idea, he's citing state law, Idaho state law, and then federal law as far as handling privileged information. He didn't come out and say, here's allegation 1, that Bruce is having access to NCIC databases and such, and if he did, it would be a misdemeanor and or a felony, depending on who it was that you were violating, whether it was a federal statute or whether it was a local. So that's what he's trying to say. He never got there quite yet, but let's go ahead and keep playing that.
also we have to mandatory report to the FBI. So we have connectivity with the United States, a United States agency. So I guess the way that I interpret this, if you're a conservative Republican, you're probably going to get charged with a felony. If you're a liberal Democrat, you're probably going to get nothing charged, and you're probably going to say, good job, keep doing it. But that's the difference between a misdemeanor in a state statute and a felony, because a system touches a United States government
Oh my God.
system. All right.
I've already spoken about Bob Norris giving.
Okay, so I just want to say this again. He literally could have said, it is illegal according to Idaho state law. Here's the number. Go look it up yourself. And federal code for any person that doesn't have an official law enforcement reason and meets the minimum standards for being able to access privileged information to use these databases on your laptop or your desktop, that is a crime. And that is not what he really set up very well.
Yeah, and he could have further stated that is a crime, and if his point was, and Commissioner Bruce Mattare does not have login information, that's it. It could have could have been a 20-second. Yeah,
but he doesn't like what I'm insinuating. So here we go.
This special deputy status to Bruce Mattare, who has never gone through any kind of a police academy, yet he now has police powers. He was, of course, Bob's former campaign manager and now newest county commissioner. And yet there's supposed to be a separation of powers, and I'm not seeing that between the county commissioner's office and the sheriff's office. And that should concern all of us. Bruce now has access to information, police power type of information that you and I don't have access to, and he can use that information against his political opponents. I've had several speaking engagements recently where Bruce has shown up, and he's used some information that I'm kind of curious as to where he obtained that from. You see, if they can do this to me, they can do it to any of their political opponents. And Bob Norris is facilitating this. It's below the belt. It should be considered to be improper, bad policy. And I think that Bob should immediately pull the special deputization, and the citizens of Kootenai County should demand it. We do not want the joining of powers between any of the three branches here locally, and we sure as heck don't want a current elected official having access to stuff that only police have access to. What do you guys think about that? Are you okay with Bruce having the special deputization?
All right, go ahead and pause it there. Now, if you can go back to it real quick. Okay.
I've already spoken about.
So, there's a couple of different elements in here that I would like to briefly discuss. And he concludes that video by saying that Bruce has asked him questions about information and he's curious where it came from. And he also says if they can do that to me, he concludes that Bruce did access this information because they can do it to anybody. So,
did you want to break
Bruce,
in? Because I see
Mr. Bruce Mattare.
I see you want to say something.
Oh, just that he suggested that your words were, if he could do that to me, is somehow proof that you are saying Bruce definitely then did log in. Bruce definitely has a login.
What I said is I'm curious as to where you got that information. And that if they can do this to me as a sheriff candidate, they can do it to all of you.
Yes, it's a matter of listening to it in its totality and not breaking it apart and saying if they can do it to me, they can do it you, which is he's saying.
Well, we're going to show some indicators that they're not being truthful on this. So go ahead.
Police powers.
No, I do not.
Okay, so I have 325 special deputies on the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office.
Incorrect.
Most of them are law enforcement.
Okay, real quick. There's two types of designation, and all you have to do we have the QR code for the Coeur d'Alene Press?
I do.
So let's put that up there. So you guys can go and read Bob and Bruce in their own words. Remember, Bob never asked for any kind of a correction or redaction of anything or retraction of anything that he said in there. Bruce talks about this warm and glowingly. But he talks about the fact that he discusses things with the sheriff, and he's not allowed to share what he discusses with the sheriff. But there's two types of designations. There is a cross deputization. That is for other current law enforcement officers like the Coeur d'Alene Police and the Spirit Lake Police and Spokane County Sheriff's Office and Liberty Lake and the U.S. Forest Service and FBI. He can give those current serving law enforcement officers of their various types this cross deputization, which allows them to carry out their duties across the county with the sheriff's permission. He actually swears them in. Then there's the second type, and Bruce Mattare is one of these second type. Those are the special deputies. So he's trying to con you by saying, well, I have about 300 of these. That is not true. He has 50, as of the time of this recording, back 2 years ago, he had 15 special deputies, and we had the list. And specifically, Bruce is one of these special deputies, never went through any kind of a law enforcement academy, never had a background check for the job, never went through a polygraph, never went through a psych test. In fact, they've never shared exactly what his specific duties are. So just want to set that up. We're going to catch Bob when he's lying in the middle of this stuff because it's important.
Although I run about 15 or so a year that don't have law enforcement.
That's the special deputies, not
Bruce
the cross deputies.
Has a business degree, an MBA.
Who cares?
In business and an undergraduate in.
He's got a bullshit degree.
Bruce
I agree.
knows the pulse of this community very, very well.
Washington, D.C., but he knows the pulse.
By a previous undersheriff, which was Dan Mattis, and he says, hey, this is not uncommon for somebody to be working with the sheriff that has a great understanding and their pulse on the community as a special deputy, because we will be dealing with sensitive information.
There you go. Sensitive information. Hear that, guys? Sensitive information. Law enforcement has access by law to varying degrees of privileged or protected information. And he's right there saying he has access to that. Bruce has access to that. And by the way, he tries to blame this on former Kootenai County Undersheriff Mattis, that, you know, he brought this idea of the special deputizations. We're going to talk about why that's bullshit coming around later on in the Q&A, because Bob was actually the handler of Sheriff Baca's special reserves under Homeland Security that were donors to Baca and Tanaka, and they had no law enforcement experience either. So this whole scam that he's trying to say is from a former sheriff is pure bullshit.
I swear in attorneys to do outside investigations for us, and that attorney needs to have the power to compel employees to speak. I have special deputized when the F-35s came. Everybody remember when the F-35s came? We did a special status with many members of the Marine League.
Okay, so now he's trying to say when there was special aviators from the military that came in to Hayden and landed the jets, that he went out and he gave special deputizations. That's ceremonial, folks. He's trying to make light of this, but we already know from his diarrhea of the mouth to the Coeur d'Alene Press that he uses Bruce for all sorts of messaging and sensitive information that he shares with him for the good of the county.
I recently special deputized 4 firefighters from Northern Lakes. I also
arson investigators.
Did deputize a young man that gave more to this organization than we would ever get from him. And he gave a lot to this organization. So I have 325.
So he's trying to minimize it. Remember, deflecting and minimizing it. He's the one that's bitching that I bring this up. Out of the Coeur d'Alene Press, go read. Check this QR code. Where is it? Right there. Woo! Can't do the, would never be on, whatever it is. Okay. Go to there, read in their own words what they're doing. And understand that right now, Bob, because he got caught and now he's pissed off that we bring it up and we're saying, hey, there shouldn't be a county commissioner that approves the budgets and keeps the sheriff in check from a administrative standpoint, should be working that close. And by the way, at this time, Bruce was the known campaign manager of Bob Norris. Bruce Mattare was the campaign manager of Bruce Mattare was the campaign manager of Bob Norris during this time this video was put up.
And everyone, I'm off screen, but you guys got this. But every other one of these special deputizations that he was listing off are most likely ones that would make sense. One of them, he's talking about a young man. For all we know, he's talking about
that's ceremonial again.
I was going to say ceremonial.
And this is why I disagree with you, because it needs to be one or the other. Either the special deputies have a very special job that they're doing a function, but not for ceremonial reasons like marine pilots that come into the county or a kid that has some kind of illness. I mean, absolutely not.
And I knew what he was referencing. Yeah. I agree with you on that one. And later on in this, he says, everyone, maybe he said it before, but every person that has the special deputization has a list of responsibilities, their role and responsibility. So my question was, well, then where is Bruce Mattare's?
They won't. We've requested it. They refuse to give it.
Yep, exactly.
Also, Bruce Mattare said he was under an NDA, and we found out through the county, the clerk, and through the sheriff's office, no records exist.
Yes, definitely a conflict.
I do confide on. I don't do politics very good. I'm gonna.
He's not a politician, folks.
I feel like I know the community and this organization really, really good. I feel like law enforcement's really good. But does Bruce assist me in some of the political stuff? Yes.
So he's saying Bruce Mattare is the true politician?
Unwritten non-disclosure agreement that I have spoken to him, because every single one of
doesn't exist.
A special deputy gets this particular piece of paper, and I give the duties of that special deputy assignment.
There you go.
Such as the F-35 group when it came.
It's the standard oath. That's it. The standard oath. That's it.
Yeah. Just whatever he says goes.
Bruce, I have a couple other questions to ask you. Have you ever asked anybody on the sheriff's office to obtain information on anybody?
Never.
Have you ever paid anybody to obtain information from anybody on the sheriff's office?
Never.
Was there a public records request submitted with your name on it? And then I'm going to give this public records request to Mr. Bushley, and he's going to read what it is.
We're going to let this
and
ride.
Read what it says.
So do you all understand what a public records request is? Yeah. Okay, it sounds like most of you do. Title of this document is Kootenai County Sheriff's Office Public Records Request Form. Date 2/14/24. Name Bruce Mattare. Mailing address, telephone number. I am requesting to copy or to examine certain records of the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office which may be identified as follows. Date and time of incident, 01 to 01/21 to present. Okay, January 1/21 to present. Address or location of incident, 5500 North Government Way. Login, password, credentials does Bruce Mattare have at the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office? The box checked here is unable to respond for one or more of the following reasons. Record not known to exist.
Okay, record not known to exist. So, Bruce Mattare, had anybody done a public records request, you would have found that Bruce Mattare doesn't have a login, it doesn't have any access, nor do any of our special deputies have any access to any law enforcement applications.
This just came up to me. frequently when I do requests on deputies and responsibilities. Recently, I requested the past 5 years of all Kootenai County Sheriff's deputies and their salaries and their position. And they cite Idaho code that says, hey, we can't give you that information because it's protected for law enforcement purposes, right? We're protecting the deputies. So I will call bullshit on this by asking, if he goes in there and he asks specifically, does Bruce have a log on? Well, number one, they couldn't give him the information anyway if it was. And number two, it wouldn't be available in the first place. So therefore it would say no records exist. I mean, I found this out for the past 2 years, how many of my records come back where we know that the records are there, but they say they're not known to exist. So, I mean, this is...
Well, it's a whole rain dance around something. They have put themselves in a position where they know exactly what questions to ask to get the no answer or the no records exist answer. It doesn't mean, I wanted to jump in there and I know we need to move forward, but when Bob's doing his grilling, cross-examination, I wanted to say, Bruce, did you ask Stephanie Fetzer? Yeah. Well, to go talk to the person who pulled the record. Give me a break.
Do we have that one slide? I want to bring that up real quick, or will that mess us up?
No, it won't. It won't mess anything up.
Let's go to slide number number 7.
Pull that off for a second.
Number 7.
Yeah, I thought that might be
7. Okay, so again, we're talking about. This came about because Bruce Mattare came to my pachyderms, brought this police incident report as the Spokane Sheriff's Office. And I wanted to know how they got it and as quick as they did. And I was just speculating, is this because Bruce has access? I was a law enforcement officer. I was a law enforcement officer over in Washington. I already know that the two systems don't connect. There isn't any connector between Kootenai County's CAD system and Spokane areas. But here's what's interesting. We're going to show you, my ex-wife is the one who actually pulled that report. And I'm showing you right here that it was recorded January 3rd. So this was a month prior to me going to the pachyderms, right after I announced. And it shows that she specifically asked for an incident report. Now, I'm going to tell you, my ex-wife was not, I'm going to be as nice as I can, didn't understand or have the wherewithal to be able to even get that number in the first place. That incident number had to have come by somebody on the inside that specifically knew how to look through previous history calls at the address that I lived and went specifically to that call that they were looking for and gave that information. So that information had to have gotten to my ex-wife for her to get that in the first place. And the reason why I know this is because I asked for anything that was requested about me and my ex-wife, etc., to see who is pulling records. Because, by the way, when you pull a record, those requests are also public record.
Yeah, I mean, the point is, your average...
She never did.
People don't just know exactly what the incident number is. You have to go through a course of it. You have to know, like, a date range and narrow things down.
Or if you are inside law enforcement, meaning that they have a contact over in Spokane law enforcement that was able to pull up incident history where it's borderline... a violation of Washington state access, and to provide that number to my ex-wife, who then went to get that and provided it to Bob Norris.
The point is, she didn't have it written down somewhere where she went and she's like, hey, by the way, I've been hanging on to this for the last 15 years.
No,
and I want to give this
she
to
got
you guys.
it back in January 24.
That's more my point. There you go.
To the sheriff's office. Now, in this accusation, let me back up a minute. Mr. Mattare, you have you asked candidate Wilson a question on this campaign trail?
Yes, I asked him one time when he was speaking at pachyderms last month.
And can you tell us just briefly on what the incident and what the paper that you referred to was?
Well, I'd asked him if he'd ever lied to or misled any law enforcement officer, yes or no. And he gave an evasive answer initially. And so,
according to
that,
you,
I read a police report that was provided to us, to you, through, and then me, the Spokane County Sheriff's Office, where it basically discussed how he was evasive and not answering direct questions to the responding deputies that showed up for the call for service, where his neighbor actually called them to show up because of intimidation or something like that.
So, for the purpose of this particular accusation, you've only asked him that one question as it pertains to any type of official police document, and that was the question?
Yes.
Okay. And he suggested, based on his audio, that Bob Norris and Bruce Mattare conspired to give him access to protected information so he could use against political opponents. So, for that to occur, we would have to, the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office would have to have connectivity to the Spokane County Sheriff's Office.
No, it's called, you call your contact
Mr.
over in
Bushling, I'd like
Spokane.
to give you a public records request. Can you please tell the audience?
This is the same type of document that was just referred to previously. It's directed to our Robert Norris. Provide the name of the law enforcement application / system that the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office has direct access or connectivity to police reports.
No record exists.
Or logs
You're
from the Spokane
conflating
County
it.
Sheriff's Office or Spokane Police. That was March 4th of this year. The response, unable to respond for one or more of the following reasons, record not known to exist.
Of course.
The Kootenai County Sheriff's Office does not have any connectivity
He had to do a public record
for
request.
police
as the
reports
sheriff, he
and
doesn't
log
know that.
information from the Spokane County Sheriff's Office. Period.
But it doesn't stop you from taking a unethical deputy or officer in the Spokane area who can access that information. In fact, they can do it in a way that they don't even have to drill into the specific report to log that they looked at the report. They can merely type in an address and all the different incidents that ever took place at that address would pop up. You can go into the date range and go, okay, this is about the right time. Ask specifically for this one because of the disposition of the call. Neighborhood dispute. Okay. So, I mean, he's again trying to do these mental gymnastics with you by saying, oh, it's so preposterous. We have no contact over. And by the way, remember Mark Ellis, Lieutenant Mark Ellis, his brother is the undersheriff of Spokane County. I'm not saying that they were involved, but I'm just saying lots of guys work in Kootenai County whose family members also work in the Spokane area. That was a very common thing.
Yeah, the thing is, this is, I feel like, gotten very watered down from the fact that you have a county commissioner who showed up to very early on in your campaign to a place where you were invited to speak, which should have been inspirational, motivational, and then answer questions, legitimate questions that were asked. You have a sitting county commissioner that comes up with a police report that he obtained how? Who tipped him off? Even if you had an ex-wife who somehow had never, I mean, she had never ever in her life been politically active, involved, whatever. She never would have even known who the contacts were that were key players in these campaigns to say, I mean, do you really think she came up front first and say, hey, I got some dirt on him. You guys want this? I mean, I guess maybe. But more likely it's the reverse, that they said, we need to know who this guy knows, who his enemies are, and what they can present.
And that's the county commissioner doing this.
County commissioner doing it. Yeah. And even if it was by one or two people removed, because he
Still
can say, hey, you know who?
Direction.
That is the point. They've just done this half-hour song and dance to disprove Mattare having access. And so therefore Dan Wilson is somehow a liar, which none of that is even the point. It's disgusting that you got a guy running for office, and whatever method and means that sitting elected officials, including your county sheriff, will use to go locate or access ex-family members to pull up dirt on you. And it was pathetic, by the way, and I cannot wait until you address that part of it. Okay, here we go.
Now, I did receive a correspondence from Mr. Wilson, and it had to do with a cease and desist. And it had to do with a public records request that he submitted to the Spokane County Sheriff's Office.
A what?
I don't know.
What the hell is he talking about?
I wanted to ask you about that. What's cease and desist? I don't even know what he's talking about.
We do it on one page. They have like about a 6-page.
No clue.
So, Mr. Bushling, I'm going to show
Did you ever send Norris a cease and desist?
I sent him a cease and desist letter of using his official position as sheriff to send out intimidations. That was it.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
the Spokane County Sheriff's Office. I received this in an email, and if you could just say what it, look at it and say that it appears to be an official document.
Yes, it looks like it's an email with an attachment of the official correspondence from the sheriffs of Spokane.
And then if you look on, and you don't have to say the person's name, but if you just say the first name there of the person who requested this document.
Lisa.
Okay, and based on the last name, do you think that would be more likely affiliated with Bruce Mattare, Bob Norris, or Dan Wilson? Based on her last name.
It's Lisa Wilson.
Okay, so. Bruce Mattare, Bob Norris, we did not request any information from the Spokane County Sheriff's Office.
Oh.
Mr. Wilson is not here to provide us any documentation to prove or disprove his video. So I have a question for you, Mr. Bushling. Based on what you were able to see on video, and based on our statements, and based on the evidence provided to you, does this prove or disprove the allegation that Mr. Wilson is making towards us?
It doesn't seem to me to form any type of foundation for the claims that he made. I would like to add one other thing, only because he used the term separation of powers. I just thought it was important to address that, because he is making an allegation that because Commissioner Mattare and the sheriff have some status where they speak frequently, apparently, that is somehow a violation of the separation of powers. And I just want everyone to be clear that that is not even close to violating the Separation of Powers Act. That is what the separation of powers was directed to, keep one government entity, legislative, judicial, executive, from doing the function of another government entity. There's nothing wrong, however, with the members of the different entities with collaborating. That's how work gets done. Hopefully I answered that question.
Okay, Bryant Bushling, as you're going to pull up that one slide. Bryant Bushling, former prosecuting attorney from down out of Los Angeles, then took a stint up in Kootenai County. You are a first-class fool. You're a fool. You literally just heard Bob and Bruce working together. You didn't do your homework for a guy that's going to come up there and be the great mediator, the judge. Bob actually says that he entrusts Bruce with certain responsibilities, gives him an NDA, and he's a county commissioner. How in the hell can you come up with a conclusion that they're not working on behalf of each other? Are you really that stupid? Well, I guess you are stupid, because in 2016, while you were a deputy prosecutor in Kootenai County, here's what you put on a social media post on Facebook, and it was picked up by the Spokesman Review. I'm going to read it real quick. Kootenai County Deputy Prosecutor said Tuesday that a Facebook comment he made suggesting genocide could happen if police stopped patrolling black neighborhoods was misunderstood. Bryant Bushling, a deputy prosecutor here for 5 years, made and then edited a comment in response to a meme posted Sunday on the Facebook wall of Kootenai County Bailiff Todd Hartman. In a phone conversation with the press today, Bushling said he edited the comment because it was not received in the way he intended. Really? I can't imagine why. In the meme in question shows a photo of a white police officer and has text that states, quote, "If we really wanted you dead, all we'd have to do is stop patrolling your neighborhood and wait," unquote. In his original response, Bushling wrote the following, quote, "Great point. Where the police are under attack from politicians and the police become less aggressive, the murder rates go up. I say, let them have their neighborhoods. They will be like Rwanda in a matter of weeks." End quote. This fool almost became the prosecuting attorney here in Kootenai County, appointed when Barry McHugh became judge. But Brian, you're such a freaking dumbass that a judge, a police officer, a deputy prosecutor, none of you should be at all going close to that line of saying stupid shit like that. And we know that you were saying because it's black neighborhoods, you're trying to claim that they're going to be like a third world country like Rwanda. But you didn't really mean it. Kind of like you don't understand the difference between separation of powers and why that concept came to be. Separate, co-equal, but separate to keep everybody accountable, checks and balances. And when you have the county commissioner that has a deputy star and signs a non-disclosure agreement, as they alluded to, and has special tasks, he is operating on behalf of the sheriff. And you are about the biggest idiot that I've ever heard that was a prosecuting attorney in the state of Idaho. So I wanted to get that out of the way.
Well, I want to remind people, too, that Bruce Mattare, before he was a special deputy, but he was campaigning originally for that position of Kootenai County Commissioner, he was already campaigning on this idea that the sheriff's budget needed to increase. There were things that they needed. So he was, because of the previous relationship that Mattare and Norris had, with Mattare being Norris's campaign manager, there was a loyalty and alliance there to eventually get Norris what he needed once he was in office.
Bushling's a tool.
All right.
Okay, let's go to allegation number 2.
We're done.
Mr. Wilson is claiming on many different platforms that I have 100% disability. Well, I did not know that. He is also claiming that I make $180,000 a year, and he's also claiming that 50% of that is tax-free. All of those allegations are false. And there it is on one of his social media platforms. And I think we have another documentation of Bob Norris is on 100% Lacera disability and have never disclosed this to Kootenai County residents. Well, Mr. Bushling, I would like for you to take a look at 2 documents and tell the folks in the audience here what they are.
I know.
And
one is a document from Roger Sohn, a medical doctor. This is regarding the sheriff. It says agreed medical reevaluation. And it says combining all impairments, the right shoulder is rated at 12% impairment whole person.
So I have a 12% rating on my right shoulder? Correct. Okay. Yeah, I have to look at it. And now, can you look at the other document here? And the quarter orders on the back of it. And then here's the...
These are apparently settlement documents regarding, oh, I'm sorry, it's left shoulder and elbow.
Yep. And then what is the disability rating on the left shoulder?
13%.
Okay. So I have 13% on this shoulder, 12% on this shoulder. What do those mean? Those means that any future injuries, any future surgeries, the 2 insurance companies work it out to how much that insurance company is going to pay versus how much this insurance company is going to pay. I am not nowhere near, even if you add both of them up, not 100% disabled. But he claims this on many different platforms. So, Mr. Bushman, based on what documentation you have, does this appear to prove or disprove Mr. Wilson's allegation that I am 100% disabled?
First of all, considering the documents that you gave me, you're clearly not 100% disabled. And again, we have a situation in which an allegation was made. I would think that if an allegation were going to be made, someone would have proof of it. I don't know where, I would really like to know where he gets the information.
What a caveman.
There's a 100% disability. And I don't mean to be partisan here, but I think it's important if you're going to make allegations that you be able to prove them.
It's not just that. He said, considering the documents you gave me. Yeah. So that's not all the evidence, brother.
They have it. I haven't seen it.
Let's go to allegation number 3.
We're going to bring up our proof. So we're going to bring up the very first slide. Now, this is updated 2 years later. This is actually what you guys can download this information yourself from Lacera. You're going to see this is from Transparent California. It shows Robert Norris as of 2024. That was 2 years ago. His retirement was 2014. His pension is $0. His benefits are $39,055. His disability is $153,287.76 for a combined total pension and benefit amount of $192,343.68.
And that's it. He was getting on. He was camping on the fact, again, like any good narcissist will do. Well, you said this one thing wrong. Yeah. So $153,287.76 is disability. The other part are other retirement benefits.
Notice there is nothing in the pension line. There's nothing there. Go to Captain Mike Bauer, who also retired. He's on that list. He doesn't have anything in the disability rating, and he spent 30 plus years there. Captain of the Special Enforcement Bureau. That's the SWAT guys. That's the intel. That's the aviation, the helicopter programs. This guy did everything, and yet he didn't get a little boo-boo on his shoulder like Bob did. Bob claims it's 12 and 13%, but yet there's something else. We told you earlier that in the early days, we had deputies telling us he had a heart incident. In fact, he was supposed to be off work permanently. They were going to terminate him is what we were told. And it was due to a heart incident. We're going to talk more about this in the Q&A section, but let's go ahead and bring up that next slide. Open source, folks. You can download this as well. Division of Workers' Compensation in California, FAMS. Look, Robert Norris, date of injury 3/18/84 through 5/19/2003. So these are the injuries that he is claiming for his separation, as we understand it. He has, again, trunk for use side, multiple parts, any combination above parts. That's body part 1, body part 2, lower extremities not specified, body part 3, multiple parts, more than 5 major parts, use only in 5th position of listing body parts. Don't know exactly what that means. Part number 4, 801, circulatory system, heart other than heart attack, blood, arteries, veins. That right there coincides with what we were told, that Bob Norris had a heart incident, that he was taken by squad car because he didn't want his neighbors to see him being hauled away in a ambulance to the hospital, that his cardiologist has blue suede shoes, and that he received 2 stints, and it was going to be career ending. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but Dan Wilson did not lie. Everything that we have seen compels us to say, this shows 100% disability. Now, Bob Norris, you have the ability to provide, since you are a public official and you want to be the highest elected position in the county, chief law enforcement officer. We showed your emotional outbursts. Maybe that's medication that you're on for a heart issue, but show us exactly what happened, and what, more importantly, is your work restrictions, because folks, we're talking about fraud on multiple levels. My belief is that there are work restrictions in place for him calling himself disabled, and he's getting a disability pension. You saw that. So if in fact the restrictions are that he can no longer perform the functions of law enforcement duties, what other exemptions are there that allow him to be the sheriff? Can he handle the stress? Can he handle wearing his duty belt that he wears often when he goes to different functions, his Kevlar vest? I mean, we saw him right after he was sworn in, back up a deputy on a traffic stop and attempt to threaten, because he loves pepper spray. He was going to pepper spray some dude that was videoing the traffic stop bystander. Tell me where the lie is. Bob Norris could produce documents, official documents, that immediately could put all this to bed. And you would think that a guy that's high speed would immediately want to quash his opponent and go, here's the records.
Well,
but he didn't like the fact that we have shown this publicly sourced information that shows he had a heart type of incident.
Yes, but the problem is he would say that he did do that in this event. But that's when I'm going to remind you again, former prosecuting attorney Bryant Bushling says, based on the records that you gave me, meaning the records that Bob Norris just handed me.
But he also said apparently that I showed no evidence when I showed the list in my original video.
No, because he didn't look. He said I couldn't find. Again, that
never
proves
contacted
nothing.
us. Never contacted us.
He contacted neither Dan nor I, so that proves nothing. And that's why, again, just bringing it back around, that is one of the reasons that this whole dog and pony show event was an absolute joke, because they could raise the questions, they could bring the documentation, they could bring in the former prosecuting attorney to look at it from a legal standpoint. They're making up all of their own rules, and the devil's in the details.
Reminds you of,
I know you want me to continue.
Well, and I'm going to say this one more time. Bob hates the fact that we have caught him on camera and we continually played these videos over and over again of the sheriff, the most important person of your county, bawling over bullshit, non-crying events. Somebody called me a racist. I can't get enough manpower to plug all the holes in the sinking ship. Even though, according to your resume, you claimed that you had all this vast experience. You were handpicked. Leadership, handpicked. And you couldn't fix any of this. And your outbursts and you're crying when you're talking in front of your friends. This is not normal behavior out of a sheriff. I, in all my years in law enforcement, never observed any sheriff that I was around in Spokane County, including Mark Sturck, to ever be a crybaby. And we should be concerned. So there's that aspect. If you got some medical issue that's causing you to behave this way, you probably shouldn't be in a high stress environment. And number two, are you being fraudulent? Because if you're well enough to do these duties that you most likely are restricted from doing for your settlement, because you're disabled, kind of like if you got a carpenter that hurts himself, I'm a contractor, hurts himself and can never go back to work. They say you can't lift more than 20 pounds. And here's your settlement. And then I find that he's working at a feed store throwing 100-pound sacks. That's fraud. Again, prove what your disability and what your restrictions are. And remember, folks, $190,000 a year now in combined benefits and your disability, as well as $145,000 he's making as sheriff of Kootenai County.
Yeah, the other thing, if you don't like that argument that Dan's making about Bob Norris with his loss of control, crying about nothing, because I know for some of you females in the audience, it makes you feel bad. Okay, you let your emotion get involved, it makes you feel bad. What I would present, just ask yourself this question: is it logical that somebody is receiving, again, we'd have to go to 2024 for the recent numbers, but my mind right now is going to what we had up on the screen. Well, that might have been current.
Yeah,
but
that was
100,
current. Well,
150
to 2024 current.
to 24. So it increases by the year. It's somebody legitimately $150 some odd $1,000 a year if they're not majority on disability.
Remember,
that is the majority of the benefit is disability. And I will add, when they came out with this event and we saw what their so-called proof was, we said, okay, you're camping on the 100%. And we did actually immediately, because we could pivot very quickly. We printed a retraction in that article. Nothing else in what we presented changed, because one way or the other, it is hugely problematic that it is majority disability. There is no way. I would ask you to question, so I don't get in trouble here, that with minor 12 and 13% shoulder injuries, that he's receiving that much. Just question that. That is what we are presenting. This is a problem. Clearly, you have emotional control issues, both with crying and with anger.
You're on medication for it's again speculation. But last thing before because we're going to do one more and then we're going to break it for the week.
Yeah,
is this? My understanding is disability retirements receive up to 50% tax free. So it's quite plausible that out of the $153,000 that I just showed you, that over $75,000 is not even taxable. And is that fair again? So anyway.
And I think that was another thing that he got stuck on and got some laughs from his followers over was he was like, oh, if I'm not paying any taxes, I'd sure like to know that. Because again, they'll pick the one thing if you're bringing out what and saying, look, we are asking for transparency and accountability, and there are huge problems here. They're going to find one misstep, and that's where they're going to say, we discredit everything you're coming forward with because you made this one, misspoke here, or made this one misstep there.
All right, keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and play the video.
Okay, do we have this actual video? Can we pop ahead of this one? Because nobody's going to be able to hear this part.
Yeah.
What we did is we actually had the same video from our vantage point because we mic'd and recorded everything we're on. They're using this. You guys can actually go to, I think it's the CDA Freedom Watch to see this. And again, if you go to the QR code to this event on the Rumble channel where we found this video, you're going to be able to see it so that we're not they're hiding anything.
You got two things going. You've got echo in the room where the video they're showing was recorded, and then we're showing an event where it's again a bunch of ambient room noise.
Setting it up. This is the pachyderms back in early February where Bruce Mattare came with this law enforcement incident report, the deputies, to try to claim that I was untruthful and a liar to law enforcement. So if you got that, let's go ahead and play.
I do.
Play that.
And this is the second time, again, an elected county commissioner, somebody in public office, shows up to your event where you were invited to speak and then do a Q&A. And this is what happens. You're going to have to just deal. If you have sensitive eyes, you're going to have to look the other way. The angle of this is I was sitting at the table. This is the angle I got because Dan and I ramped up very quickly. We were not prepared when we arrived at this event. You were prepared.
I thought I was going to talk to a bunch of old timers.
Yes, you were prepared to speak with what you thought it was, not realizing it was ambush. So we were a very quick study,
like
and
people
that never happened again. So the angle, this is a low angle. You're just going to have to deal with it, and don't send your complaints to me.
Don't send it to Teresa Roth.
Yeah, send them.
I'm not going to take questions from Bruce because Bruce likes to try to trip me up.
That's not what somebody who's not willing to listen to his constituents.
That's
how he's going to be here.
Let them ask their question, please. You made a comment that you are a huge fan of law enforcement, which I think is great. So my question to you is, have you ever lied to or misled another law enforcement officer? Yes or no?
None that I recall.
Okay.
None that I recall.
I said none that I recall.
Okay, interesting response.
Yeah. Do you remember everything that you've ever said to anybody at any time?
If I ever lied to somebody, yes, I do remember that.
Do you have a gun on you right now?
I do.
Okay. So this is what's interesting, is that after you'd already identified yourself as a reserve police officer, a Deputy Edelbrock with the Spokane County Police came up.
I know this one, and you're not going to tell the whole story on that one either,
well,
I'm guessing.
I'll tell you what he said. Okay, what he said
and just for the record, I was never disciplined. That report was sent in, and my sergeants talked with me, and there was no disciplinary action.
Well, here's what the deputy said. I asked him again, if he was currently carrying a gun.
I was on my own property.
Daniel's response was, not anymore. Now, I just asked you if you're carrying a gun, you said yes.
I told Daniel that I didn't care for his evasive answers. Well, he gave me an evasive.
Was I charged with a crime, Bruce?
I was asking yes or no questions, and he was looking around and giving me less than direct responses, like the criminals we investigated. This is not my words. This is the number.
Well, I understand. I'm very well of that report.
Something of Daniel's posture or facial looks caused me to walk around my car and over to within 10 feet of Daniel and ask again. It's the third time. Have you got a gun on you? This time, Daniel said, yeah, I did, and started reaching back with his hand as if to show it to me or possibly to raise the jacket. I told Daniel to keep his hands away from the gun. Now, if you're a huge fan of law enforcement, and when you interact with them, you mislead them. So how can you be a huge
So I'm
fan of
going to
law
make a
enforcement?
statement here and say that not all police reports are accurate. And I am a
So
firm
law
law enforcement
enforcement
officer.
officers
They're
lie.
not
What
always,
is that?
they are not always accurate. I'm sorry.
Okay, so
I'm
they
going,
lie.
I'm going to put that on the record.
And you're going to say that the supporting deputy there, he goes, I conferred with Deputy Edelbrock after the contact, and he informed me that when he interviewed Daniel Wilson during the contact, that Wilson admitted that as they were speaking, he was in fact armed with a gun after giving the impression that he had only earlier been wearing a gun. That's not a difficult
Yeah,
question.
the
to
question
answer.
at the time was I wearing my service weapon? And that is what he did not report. I had a .38 pistol on my person, but I was on my own personal property. They're responding to a neighborhood call on my property. Yes.
3 times you were asked that question, and only the third time did you finally.
That's according to him, and I'm going to say that he was a liar. And I will go on the record saying that he was.
Well, maybe he might have a different story.
Well, remember that my sergeants, nobody ever wrote me up for it.
Well, you're a trained police officer, and so it doesn't make any sense whatsoever why you wouldn't be forthright on the very first question.
I was. So I'm going to beg to differ on that. And again, was that a criminal charge? Was there a criminal charge? Or was that merely a report?
It's about character and about how you respond to
not
questions
character, how you
from
respond.
fellow law enforcement officers. That's what it really is.
Well, I'd love to have a
And
side.
that's why you were evasive when I asked you that question. I said, have you ever lied to one? And you said, well, I don't recall. But you said that you were aware of this report. So you clearly knew that, and you didn't want to bring that up, okay? And that's my point.
No, you had the report before you said it, you dumbass.
You evade, even though you are supposed to be the one that we can trust to give us honest, straightforward.
Is that like the sheriff lying to a photographer for Los Angeles County saying that Captain Bauer had a flood and he wanted to get his pictures? Is that like that?
Okay, so let's stop this real quick here. So we play more because, of course, they cut off that last section. Let's go ahead and play what they're playing because I don't want to be redundant. So let's see if we can needle drop it. Go ahead and play what we have on this, and if we can, we're going to needle drop it because we're going to get to the
I'll
meat
try.
potatoes
I just
of it.
want to point out because I know you're going to take it in a different direction. But Bruce Mattare, within that ambush, he says to Dan, "You're a trained police officer." So in essence, you should know better. So it's funny how when it suits him, you're a trained police officer. When it doesn't suit his argument, you know, Norris wouldn't even hire you to pick up dirty laundry from the floor, and you were just a part-time reserve. So I'll pop this back up on the screen. We'll do our best.
And you're going to say that the supporting deputy there who goes, I conferred with that.
Keep going. 29.
It's not this isn't
it's
the
not
best.
Right there. Okay.
This one is we have a
So
one
they're
deputy sheriff
bringing the
from the
police
Spokane County
report.
Sheriff's Office that says first yellow box. He says, Dan Wilson says, I had been earlier. The second he asks him again, he says, not anymore. And then the third time, he finally says, yes, I am. Now, here's where he's lying to each and every one of you. How many law enforcement officers, retired or off the job, do we have in this room right now? All right, I'm going to pick one. I'm going to pick one that I hope I don't know, that I've never met, and or I don't socialize with. Can you raise your hands one more time? And I don't even know what camp they're in. You, sir. When you responded to a call for service and you asked somebody if they were armed, did you care if it was their issued firearm that the department gave them, or did you care if it was a different firearm, or it didn't matter, you want to know whether they were armed?
Didn't matter, sir.
Thank you. It did not matter. However, here he says, well, no, the deputy asked me if it was my service revolver. That is not reasonable.
You're a genius.
Mm-hmm.
He is lying to each and every one of you right now.
No, you're a genius.
Based on that video. So, not only do we have a deputy sheriff, Deputy Edelbrock, that says this is what happened, we have substantiated evidence from another deputy who was there, and he heard Deputy Edelbrock ask Wilson if he was armed. So this is what we have. This is what we call a substantiated allegation. It's not just one person's word against another. This is substantiated from one peace officer to another. And also, under the laws of the state of Washington, that all statements made herein are true and accurate, and that I am entering my authorized user ID and password to authenticate it. So, I submit to you on this one that when Mr. Wilson says the deputies were liars, this is a substantiated claim. And I don't know this gentleman here. However, he says, we don't care when we go to a call for service, what kind of firearm or who issued it. We want to know if you're armed. And we would have expected a clear, concise answer because he put everybody in jeopardy at that call for service. All right, let's go to the next one.
All right, so we're gonna break this down really quick here. A lot said. First of all, if they had been wearing body cameras, none of this would have ever taken place. We're going to break this down really fast. On my own property, being sued by the neighbors that purchased my old grandparents' house, they were taking land and trying to force me to give them land without paying for it. So they sued me. I was in the middle of a lawsuit at this time. I was putting up a game camera on a corner where a road went through my easement, and I was putting that camera up. It was a late spring day, early summer. It was raining. I had on my jacket, underneath it, I had a holstered duty weapon, which was my own gun. As I was putting the camera up, another neighbor drove by on the easement. I had already taken my coat off because the sun came out. It was holstered. Everybody up there shoots, has guns. Nobody is not Second Amendment. So couple, 40, 50 minutes later, I'm sitting on my back porch watching where I put this camera up, and all of a sudden 2 deputies show up from Spokane. I go and greet them and said, hey, how are you guys doing? What's going on? They said, well, we got, a call up here about a neighborhood dispute over this corner. And somebody said that there was somebody armed that was intimidating. And I laughed and I said, no, I said, I've been here. This is my land. I put this camera up that's running. And I had my duty gun on earlier. It was holstered, but I don't have it on any longer. And so we biz-baz talked for a little while. I told them about them suing me. And then the subject comes back around and he says, well, wait a second, are you armed at all? And I said, well, yeah, I've got a loaded .357 in my back pocket. And that's when he, because of his tactical deficiency, got all of a sudden all upset. Mm-hmm. Right. So the very first question, by the way, I'm on my own fucking property, just to be clear. Just like all of you, I have a right to be on my property with a gun. They never came up. They never detained me. I wasn't placed under arrest. I wasn't given my Miranda rights. Instead, we were having a conversation. And when he found out that I had a firearm and I had already identified myself as a Spokane Police Reserve officer, well, there's a couple things that you need to know about Edelbrock. Number one, I was never one time put into handcuffs during that event. He got pissed off. He was mad. Both cars were running. Their ACs were on because it was already warming up again. As I said, it was going from rain to sunshine. Edelbrock had a long-standing feud with the Spokane Police Department, as I have been told. And also, Edelbrock is somebody that is not a truthful deputy. And in fact, if you Google Deputy Thomas Edelbrock, you're going to find out that he's been sued multiple times for civil rights violations. One, where he arrested a man out of a Starbucks line because of false information that was given to him. He didn't verify it. He made a false arrest. There was another arrest where he went into a woman's house, got the wrong address. She was in her shower, unclothed. In fact, I think she had a prosthetic leg. He held her at gunpoint, wouldn't let her get dressed, held her for quite a while until he was able to determine that he was in the wrong freaking house. He was sued for that as well. That happened in Millwood. And then lastly, he shot and killed a man that he was in pursuit with, where he was the only witness. And again, not claiming that it was unjust, but there was an investigation. And to this day, he's the only one that knows what really happened. So as I said earlier, I got a call from my sergeant because once they found out that I was a reserve officer at Spokane Sheriff's Office, because Deputy Edelbrock told his supervisor, they sent the chain to SPD from S to SPD. My sergeant contacted me. I went down, had a conversation. My sergeant laughed about it because he knew the reputation of Edelbrock. But I'm going to say this again. Law enforcement is not always truthful. That pisses a lot of you off. And part of my belief is, as a leader, you don't tolerate it. There's Brady lists for a reason. But I was well within my constitutional rights to answer only the questions that were asked of me on my own freaking property. And no time was I being furtive in my movements. You just got a deputy that had a hard-on for SPD and somebody that doesn't like reserve officers. Weird. But he's the one that's been sued. I haven't been sued. I haven't been sued ever for any kind of civil rights violation or excessive use of force. But this is the guy that Bob Norris wanted to put his stamp of approval on, saying he was untruthful to this law enforcement officer. Folks, it's a report. And yes, signed under penalty of perjury. I know for a fact the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare signs records under penalty of perjury that are untruthful. It happens quite a bit. That's why reports are not the gospel. That's why in court there's cross-examinations, and that's why some police officers are found to be untruthful and they're put on a Brady list. They're impeached. So again, this is the extent that these jackasses, and if they read the entire report and actually did their due diligence, contacted Spokane Police Department to get records from my service. But this is what they did. They went out of their way at the very beginning, as Donna said, to try to claim that I'm a liar. I'm a liar. This is what these elected officials do to those that dare to challenge them in any kind of a political environment.
That's exactly what was going on. They actually, the funniest thing in all of this is that they very obviously used all of the power of their resources, and it's fascinating to realize that what they came up with supposedly against you was all that they could come up with, because that is literally all there was. So they had to take a nothing burger police report and like churn it not only for an hour forever in that event.
Here's what's funny. They used an ex-wife who was not only served a protection order. I was granted. I was the petitioner. She was the respondent. That happened. Her firearms were taken away. I was given majority custody of our children. For several years, she had to go through court-ordered and supervised rehabilitation and counseling therapy. Mm-hmm. Another protection order that just happened a few years earlier, in fact, a year prior to me running for sheriff, where her daughter put a protection order against my ex-wife. These are the class people that Bob Norris goes to get his information in order to do an I gotcha. And now, I know you guys like this soap opera stuff, but it makes itself. This is the extent of what Bob and Bruce, because they had no real substance. So far, they've not been able to discredit the sharing of information. All they said is Bob has not granted Bruce the ability to get on the CAD systems, to look up names on his own. But it never says that he himself cannot voluntarily give information to Bruce. And we know that Bruce claims that he signed this non-disclosure agreement because they discuss sensitive things. Oh, and then by the way, we provided you guys substantial evidence that would say that Bob Norris has substantial medical history. It's not just 2 shoulder injuries equaling 25% disability total. This is, I lived through this, folks. Donna, right beside me, lived through this. We're going to continue next time for more of this painstaking video that we're going through to point out all the nonsense. You guys are going to have a lot of questions, I know, between now and then, and you're going to want to come back for the Q&A because we're going to expose Bob Norris and his relationship with Paul Truett at that event. I mean, and Brett Surplus, the county commissioner candidate. So many more, and it gets even better. And in hindsight, now you can see how much they were manipulating and controlling the narrative as government officials all the way back then, because we still don't know. Is this a sheriff and commissioner inquisition on a political candidate? Well, you guys are going to have to wait until next time to see what we have more to talk about.
We do. And if for those of you who are like, wait, who is this character from Dan Wilson's past, the ex-wife that became right in the center of all of that political turmoil? We're going to, I know he breezed past that in the next episode. We are definitely going to break that down further so that he has more time. I kind of hate this expression, but to tell his truth, because there's been so much of that side of things being pushed forward because it was all that they had. It was all that they had. And so these are the really the pathetic, the underbelly of people that they had to access in order to feel like they had anything to one up you or to have anything to be offensive with, rather than on the defense. But we put them on the defense all the way through. So part 2, that's coming up. You're going to want to stay tuned for that. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Idaho Sheriff, and then also to our Facebook page, The Idaho Sheriff, and over there on Facebook at Liberty Without Compromise, because you're going to get updates as to when the part 2 of this episode will air. And I assure you, it gets even better. It really does. So thank you for joining us tonight on this special Liberty Without Compromise edition of the Show Your Proof Challenge Breakdown. You can visit our website at libertywithoutcompromise.com. Always for more information. We'll see you soon.